Hello everyone, this is my second chess video in English, and I want to present you a match between Mikhail Chigorin and Wilhelm Steinitz, which was played in Havanna in 1889. So this was a clash of styles, and as Steinitz put it, it was an old master playing a new style against a young master playing an old style. Because Chigorin was last of the Romantics, and Steinitz was giving the world this new positional approach. And Chigorin didn't agree with these principles, so this match was very interesting. So after e4, true to his form, Chigorin starts with e4 and wants to go into some tactical lines. After e5, from Steinitz, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, bishop c5, and now b4. Of course, best move is to take this, and now c3, bishop a5, and castles. Now this move isn't considered the best today, but it was a popular line back then. For example, the match between Macdonell and La Bourdonnais had many games with this variation. But later it was discovered by Anderson that knight f6 gave black an advantage, although Steinitz insisted on playing queen f6. This is the move he created against the Evans gambit. So let's see. So d4 from Chigorin, just attacking the center and also making room for his bishop on c1. Knight g7 from Steinitz, and knight g5. Instead of going for space with d5, Chigorin played knight g5, because after d5, knight d8, white has space and a better position. But instead, after knight g7, as a true romantic, Chigorin goes for piece activity with knight g5. And knight d8. And I remember Kramnik saying that Chigorin, Steinitz used to play with this style that in the Evans gambit he would play queen f6 and then put all his pieces on back row and try to defend. Well, okay, but of course castling was better. After knight g5, if black just castles, then it is not sure why did white knight go to g5, because it's taking nothing there. So, after knight g5, black refused to castle and played knight d8. Now, Steinitz goes for a cramped position to prove that he can defend this position anyway. Now, of course, if he castles, it's hard to explain what knight is doing on g5. And now Chigorin starts the attack with f4. After e takes d4, and c takes d4, Steinitz attacks the center with bishop b6. And Chigorin defends it with bishop e3. Now it's tempting to push the pawn to e5, but after queen c6 attacking the bishop and knight a3 defending, and knight f5, this central pawn is weak, and I'm pretty sure that Chigorin didn't like this position, and that's why I didn't go for this. So after bishop e6, bishop e3 from Chigorin, and now d5, just breaking in the center. This forces white to have a bad pawn structure, but also tells Chigorin, hey, you want a bishop pair or not? And Chigorin is trying to prove that Steinitz is wrong, and he just gives up a bishop pair. Of course, it's better to save the bishop pair, but of course Chigorin is trying to prove Steinitz wrong. After knight takes d5, e takes d5, I think the attack has fizzled out. So Steinitz castles, and knight c3 by Chigorin. No, developing move. Rook e8, and now knight ge4. The knight wasn't doing much on g5, so it goes back, and now queen g6. Now, of course, Steinitz is threatening f5, winning the bishop after knight moves. So bishop f2 was played, and here c6 was played. Now, it looks tempting to play rook takes e4, But after knight takes c4 and queen takes c4, rook e1 makes this bad for black because the back row is weak. Because when the queen moves, the rook will just checkmate the black king. So instead, after bishop f2, c6 was played. And now rook e1, just by Chigorin, defending the knight. And bishop d7 by Steinitz. And now knight c5. And here Steinitz goes for the exchange of rooks. Because if he plays queen d6, then after rook takes e8, bishop takes e8, and queen e2, well, white gets the file, and it's bad for black. So, after knight c5, Steinitz exchanged this and then played queen d6. This way, it's not easy to get the e-file. So after queen e3, just moves the queen up the board. C takes d5 was played, and after knight takes d7, queen takes d7, knight takes d5 by Chigorin. So this was the point of his play, because just for a moment he can recapture the pawn because the back row is weak, because if the queen takes, then queen e8 is mate. So knight c6 was played by Steinitz, just fixing his back row issues. And now Chigorin plays knight takes b6, a takes b6, and now he has a passed pawn, and black has a bad pawn structure, but also he has a weak pawn on a2, and the rook is tied to defending it. Now Chigorin plays rook e1, just going for, but the threat is illusory, of course, because just h6, and the pawns will be eaten soon. The back row is nothing there. So, of course, better was just rook d1 defending the pawn, and then pushing it forward. Here Steinitz plays h6, just fixing any back row issues, and so now the rook can capture an a2, and now Chigorin plays d5. Now this is the point that, okay, now if queen takes d5, then queen takes b6, and after rook takes a2, queen takes b7, the pawns get exchanged, and this looks like a draw. And Steinitz sees that Chigorin's pawn is weak and wants to capture it under more favorable circumstances. So after d5 from Chigorin, Steinitz plays knight b4, attacking the pawn again. Now here, it is not possible to play queen b6, because after knight d3, this looks much better for black now. The a2 pawn will fall, and after rook moves, f4 pawn will fall as well. I mean, this doesn't look good. So, of course, Chigorin didn't blunder here and played rook d1. And after knight d5, Chigorin played queen e5. And this is a normal position. So all Steinitz has to do is defend his knight, and he's safe. But real drama happened. Instead of rook a5 and just defending the knight that way, Steinitz played rook takes a2. And, well, he simply overlooked that after rook takes d5, rook a1 does not win a bishop, or a queen. Queen can actually capture this rook. And it's just simply embarrassing from a world champion, because what should have been a draw turned into a loss. Chigorin just played queen takes d5, bishop takes b6, and rest was very simple for Chigorin, because he was a bishop up and won smoothly. Steinitz fought on bravely, but, bishop up in a world championship match, it's really hopeless. So the final position was after queen c8 check, king h4, and Steinitz resigned, because there is no way to stop all threats that white has. Both players made some mistakes in the opening and middle game, and more or less, well, middle game was more or less fine. But the transition to the end game was decided by Steinitz's huge oversight here, that after queen e5, the best move was to play just rook a5, because you don't want to play rook d8, because then bishop would take on b6, and then the rook should move and the knight will fall. But no, just simply rook a5, just defending it, and after bishop b6, rook b5. Just a very simple draw. But okay, this game was decided by Steinitz blunder, because after this move, queen takes d5 and bishop takes b6. Yeah, I mean, Steinitz could have resigned here as well. And now this was the final position of the game where Steinitz resigned. The next game is also very interesting and also was decided by a blunder. Yeah, but it's nice to see the clash of styles already. That Steinitz going for a cramped position in the opening and proving that he can equalize anyway, while Chigorin just going for an attack from move 1. Thank you for